The rain in London did not wash things clean, it just made the grime stick. Elena Vance adjusted her grip on the umbrella, fighting a losing battle against the October wind that whipped down the alleyway behind the museum. Her coat was thin, 3 seasons old, and soaked through at the shoulders, but the small, warm weight of Leo resting against her hip kept the cold from reaching her bones. "Mama, wet," Leo murmured, burying his face into the crook of her neck. "I know, baby." "Almost home," Elena whispered. Her voice was steady, but her pulse thundered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. For 3 days, she had felt it. The prickle on the back of her neck. The sensation of eyes tracking her movement through the crowded tube station. The shadow that seemed to linger a second too long in the reflection of shop windows. Paranoia, she had told herself. It was just the stress of the underpaid archiving job, the crushing weight of London rent, and the constant, low-level hum of anxiety that came with being a single mother in a city that felt like it was trying to swallow them whole. She turned the key in the lock of her ground-floor flat, the metal biting into her freezing palm. The door swung open with a familiar groan. She stepped inside, kicking the door shut behind her to lock out the storm. "Okay, Leo Bug, let's get you out of this," Elena stopped. The umbrella slipped from her numb fingers, clattering to the floorboards with a sound that seemed deafening in the sudden, suffocating silence. The air in the apartment did not smell like damp wool and stale toast anymore. It smelled of sandalwood, expensive tobacco, and something sharper, ozone, or maybe just danger. A silhouette sat in the armchair by the unlit fireplace. He was a shadow cut from the darkness, darker than the gloom of the rainy evening. As her eyes adjusted, details emerged like a developing photograph, terrifyingly familiar. The razor-sharp line of a jaw that had haunted her dreams for 3 years. The broad shoulders encased in a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than her entire life's earnings. The absolute, predatory stillness of a tiger waiting for the gazelle to stop running. Kong Tae-moo. He leaned forward, the movement liquid and soundless, into the slice of streetlight cutting through the window. He had not changed. If anything, time had sharpened him. He looked harder, the boyish arrogance she remembered replaced by the cold, calcified authority of a man who commanded empires. A thin, jagged scar now bisected his left eyebrow, a flaw that somehow made his perfection more devastating. "Hello, Elena," he said. His voice was a physical blow. Low, textured with that deep baritone that used to make her toes curl, now it just made her blood turn to ice. It was the voice of a man who did not ask questions because he already owned the answers. Elena's first instinct was to run, but her legs felt like they had been replaced with lead. Her second instinct, the one born of 3 years of desperate survival, kicked in. She shifted Leo higher on her hip, her grip tightening until her knuckles turned white. "How did you find me?" Her voice trembled, betraying her. "You exist," Tae-moo said, standing up. He unfolded his height slowly, dominating the small room, sucking the oxygen out of the air. "Therefore, I find you. Did you really think a change of name and a cheap dye job would hide you from me?" He took a step forward. The floorboards, which creaked under her weight, were silent beneath his Italian leather shoes. "Stay back," Elena warned, stepping backward until her spine hit the door. Tae-moo ignored the command. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him, close enough to see the storm raging in his eyes, pitch black, endless, and burning with a cold fury. His gaze dropped from her face to the toddler in her arms. Leo, usually shy with strangers, stared back with wide, curious eyes. Eyes that were the exact same shape, the exact same midnight darkness as the men towering over them. The silence that stretched between them was heavy enough to crush bones. 3 years, Tae-moo whispered. The calm in his voice was terrifying, a thin sheet of ice over a deep, black ocean of rage. "You stole 3 years. I saved him," Elena snapped, the maternal instinct overriding her fear. "I saved him from your world. From the violence. From you. My world." Tae-moo laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You think starving in a rat-infested flat in London is saving him? Look at you, Elena. You re-thin. You re-exhausted. You re-terrified." "I am free," she countered, though the word tasted like ash. "You are a thief." He closed the distance, his hand shooting out to grip her chin. His fingers were calloused, warm, and possessive. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his gaze. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through her that was equal parts terror and a dormant, treacherous heat she thought she had killed years ago. You stole my heir. He is my son. He is ours, Taemu corrected, his thumb brushing her lower lip with a deceptively gentle stroke. And since you decided to hide him, you have forfeited your right to choose what happens next. What do you want? Elena whispered, her heart hammering against his hand. I am taking him back to Seoul. Tonight. No. The word ripped out of her throat. Over my dead body. Taemu's eyes narrowed. Do not tempt me, Yobo. The endearment, spoken with such venom, twisted a knife in her gut. I have killed men for far less than the betrayal you committed. The only reason you are still breathing is because you are holding my son. Dada. Leo piped up, confused by the tension, his small hand reaching out toward the shiny lapel pin on Taemu's jacket. Taemu froze. The mask of the ruthless CEO cracked for a fraction of a second. He looked at the boy, his flesh, his blood, and something raw and agonizing flashed across his face. Hunger. A starvation that had lasted 3 years. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, to touch Leo's hair. Crash. The front window exploded inward. Shards of glass rained down like deadly diamonds. Elena screamed, twisting her body to shield Leo, but she was not fast enough. Taemu was. Before the first piece of glass hit the floor, he had tackled her. He slammed her into the hallway corner, his massive body curling around hers and Leo's, forming a human shield. Elena hit the floor hard, the air knocked from her lungs, but Taemu absorbed the brunt of the impact. Stay down, he roared, the command vibrating through his chest against her back. Pop. 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 3 distinct sounds, like corks popping, followed by the thud of bullets embedding themselves in the plaster where they had been standing seconds ago. Silencers. Leo began to wail, a high, terrified sound that tore at Elena's heart. Cooperate or die, Elena. Choose now. Taemu growled into her ear. He shifted, pulling a sleek, black handgun from a holster beneath his jacket, a weapon that looked terrifyingly natural in his hand. Who are they? She gasped, clutching Leo so tight she feared she might bruise him. My past. Catching up. Taemu moved with the fluid, terrifying grace of a predator. He did not look scared, he looked annoyed. He rose to a crouch, firing 2 shots toward the broken window without even looking, suppressing the attackers. Move. Kitchen. Now. He grabbed Elena by the back of her coat and hauled her up, practically throwing her toward the narrow hallway leading to the back door. Elena stumbled, her feet slipping on the wet glass, but she ran. She could hear footsteps crunching on the broken glass in the living room. They were inside. Taemu did not follow her immediately. He waited in the shadows of the hallway. Elena looked back just in time to see a man in tactical black gear round the corner. What happened next was a blur of violence so efficient it made her stomach turn. Taemu did not just fight, he dismantled. He caught the intruder's gun arm, snapping the wrist with a sickening crack that echoed in the small flat. The man screamed, but the sound was cut short as Taemu drove his elbow into the man's throat, collapsing his windpipe. He spun, using the dying man as a shield as a second attacker fired from the living room. Bullets thudded into the body Taemu was holding. Elena clapped her hand over Leo's eyes, pressing his face into her shoulder to muffle his screams. Taemu returned fire, 1 shot, center mass. The second attacker dropped. He dropped the body and turned to her. His suit was ruined, splattered with blood that was not his. His eyes were wild, dilated, buzzing with adrenaline. Go, he shouted. Elena scrambled for the back door, bursting out into the rain-slicked alley. The cold wind hit her face, stinging her eyes. To the main road. Taemu commanded, right behind her now. His hand was on the small of her back, pushing her, guiding her, an iron brand burning through her coat. Taemu, they everywhere. Elena cried out as she saw 2 black SUVs blocking the end of the alley. Men were spilling out of them, weapons drawn. I know. He did not slow down. Keep running. We re-trapped. I said keep running. As the men raised their weapons, a low hum vibrated through the air, growing to a deafening roar. Suddenly, blinding floodlights washed out the alley from above. A black helicopter banked sharply over the rooftops, the wash from its rotor sending rubbish bins clattering. Suppressive fire rained down from the sky, tearing up the pavement in front of the SUVs. The attackers scattered, diving for cover. My extraction, Taemu yelled over the noise. A black armored Mercedes screeched around the opposite corner, drifting sideways on the wet asphalt before slamming to a halt in front of them. The back door flew open. Get in. He shoved Elena and Leo inside the leather-lined interior before diving in after them. Go. 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 Taemu slammed the partition. The driver floored it. The car surged forward, pressing Elena back into the seat. She gasped for air, her lungs burning, her mind struggling to process the last 3 minutes. One moment she was worrying about heating bills, the next, she was in a war zone. She looked at Leo. He was sobbing quietly now, shaking. She checked him frantically, hands, face, legs. No blood. No glass. He's okay, Taemu said. Elena looked up. Taemu was sitting opposite them, wiping blood from his hands with a pristine white handkerchief he pulled from his pocket. The casual nature of the action, cleaning off death like it was just spilled coffee, made bile rise in her throat. You brought this to us, she hissed, her fear transmuting into fury. You led them to my door. They were tracking you, Elena, Taemu said coldly. He tossed the stained handkerchief onto the floor mat. The Viper clan has been hunting for my weak points for years. They found you 3 days ago. I found you yesterday. If I had not come tonight, you and the boy would be dead. I was safe until you showed up. You were a sitting duck. He leaned forward, the sudden proximity sucking the air from the car. You think you can hide a Kong Air in a basement flat and no one will notice. You were naive. And your naivety almost got my son killed. Do not call him that. He is my son. Taemu's voice dropped, vibrating with dark possession. And you are the woman who tried to steal him. Elena pressed herself into the corner of the seat, curling around Leo. Where are we going? The airfield. My jet is waiting. I'm not going to Korea. Taemu looked at her, and for the first time, she saw the full extent of the trap she was in. It was not just the car, or the men with guns. It was him. His obsession. His power. You do not have a choice anymore, he said softly. The life you built. It's gone. That flat is a crime scene. Your name is burned. The Vipers know your face. He reached out, his hand hovering over her knee, not touching, but the threat of the touch was enough to make her skin crawl with a confusing mix of fear and memory. You wanted to run, Elena. Fine. But now you run with me. The car sped through the rainy London streets, a bulletproof bubble moving through a world Elena no longer recognized. She looked out the tinted window, watching the city blur into streaks of gray and gold. She realized then that Taemu was right. The Elena Vance who worried about grocery bills and library fines was dead. She had died the moment that window shattered. Now, she was just a prisoner. He needs a car seat, she said, her voice hollow, latching onto the only practical thing she could control. Taemu blinked, surprised by the mundane comment in the midst of chaos. He looked at Leo, who had cried himself into a whimpering exhaustion against Elena's chest. The jet has everything, Taemu said, his voice losing some of its razor edge. I prepared. For 3 years. I have prepared. He looked at her then, really looked at her, his dark eyes tracing the curve of her face, the damp hair plastered to her cheek, the terror in her eyes. You look terrible, he murmured. I look like a mother who just got shot at. You look. He stopped himself, his jaw clenching. He looked away, staring out the window at the rain. You look like mine. The words hung in the silence, heavy and suffocating. Mine. Not I love you. Not I missed you. Just ownership. Pure, unadulterated possession. The car slowed as it approached the private airfield. The massive gates rolled open, revealing a sleek Gulfstream jet sitting on the tarmac, engines whining, ready for takeoff. As the car stopped, Taimou opened the door. The wind howled, smelling of jet fuel and rain. He held out a hand to her. "Come, Elena." It was not a request. It was a summons. Elena looked at his hand, the hand that had caressed her 3 years ago, the hand that had just broken a man's wrist without hesitation. She looked at Leo, sleeping fitfully in her arms. She had no money. No passport. No allies. And an army of gangsters wanted her dead. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and crushing. He pulled her out of the car and up the stairs of the jet. As she stepped into the luxurious, cream-colored cabin, the door sealed shut behind them with a heavy, final thud. The sound of a cage locking. Taimou did not let go of her hand. He pulled her close, so close her chest brushed against his ruined suit. The smell of blood and rain was overwhelming. "Welcome home, Yobo," he whispered against her hair. Elena shivered, but she did not pull away. She could not. Because as the jet began to taxi, carrying them toward a future built on secrets and violence, she realized the most terrifying truth of all: part of her, the broken, dark part she had tried to starve in London, was relieved to be caught. The descent into Seoul was a blur of neon lights cutting through the heavy rain, a mirror image of the London they had left behind, but infinitely sharper, brighter, and more dangerous. Elena watched the city sprawl out beneath the Gulfstream's wing, a glittering grid of power and commerce that Kong Taimou owned a terrifying percentage of. Leo was asleep across the aisle, curled into a ball on a leather seat that cost more than a car. He held a small, plush tiger Taimou had produced from a hidden compartment. The irony was not lost on her. "We land in 10 minutes, Taimou said. He had not slept. He had spent the entire 12-hour flight working on a tablet, drinking espresso, and watching her with that unnerving, predatory stillness. He had changed out of the bloodied suit into fresh clothes kept on the jet, a black turtleneck and dark slacks that made him look less like a CEO and more like a cat burglar. "And then what?" Elena asked, her voice raspy. The adrenaline had faded into a bone-deep exhaustion that made her limbs feel heavy. "Then we go to the Sky Palace. It's the only place secure enough." "Secure from who?" "The Vipers. From everyone." Taimou closed his tablet, the screen snapping to black. "You have been away a long time, Elena. The power vacuum left when I took a sabbatical to look for you. It made people bold. My uncle. The Viper clan. Even the government. You destroyed your own company to find me. I paused it." He stood up, crossing the narrow aisle to loom over her. The scent of sandalwood and expensive soap filled her senses, overriding the stale air of the cabin. "And yes, I would burn it all down if it meant getting you back." He reached out, his fingers grazing her cheek. Elena flinched, pulling back. "Do not," she whispered. "Do not look at me like I'm an acquisition you finally closed. You are not an acquisition." His hand hovered, then dropped. "You are my regret. And my future." The jet's wheels kissed the tarmac with a screech. The convoy that met them was military grade. 3 black armored SUVs flanked a massive sedan. Men with earpieces and bulges under their jackets moved with synchronized efficiency, shielding them from the wind and invisible sniper lines as they transferred from the plane to the car. The drive to Hanam Dong was silent. Leo woke up, cranky and disoriented, but fell silent when he saw the city lights. "Pretty," he mumbled, pressing his small hand against the cold glass. Taimou watched the boy, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Elena saw a crack in the monster's armor, a flicker of awe, of terror. He did not know how to be a father. He only knew how to be a king. The Sky Palace was not just a name. It was a fortress of glass and steel perched on the highest hill, overlooking the Han River. Gates opened automatically as they approached, revealing high walls topped with sensors and cameras. Inside, the penthouse was cavernous. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but the glass was thick, bulletproof, distorting the view slightly. The floors were heated marble, the furniture stark and modern. It was beautiful, expensive, and completely devoid of warmth. "The East Wing is yours," Taimou announced, gesturing to a corridor. Nursery, master suite, connecting parlor. The staff has stocked it with everything you need. Clothes, toys, food. You prepared a nursery. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. You did not even know for sure I had a child. I hoped, he admitted, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. I saw the purchase history on your credit card before you went off-grid 3 years ago. Prenatal vitamins. It was the only thread I had. Elena stared at him. You re-insane. I am thorough. He turned away, loosening his watch. Get some rest. We are safe here. No one enters this building without my biometrics. Tae-moo. He stopped, his back to her. The muscles in his shoulders were tight, coiled. Why did not you just kill me, she asked. When you found me. I stole your heir. I ran. In your world, that's a death sentence. He turned slowly. The look in his eyes sucked the breath from her lungs. It was not anger. It was a hunger so raw, so consuming, it made her knees weak. Because, he said, walking toward her until he was close enough to whisper against her temple, killing you would be a mercy. And I plan to keep you for a very long time. He walked away, leaving her standing in the center of the golden cage, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. 2 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. The penthouse was a world unto itself. Staff moved like ghosts, silent, efficient, bringing meals and cleaning up toys Leo scattered across the pristine floors. They did not speak to Elena, only bowed. She was the mistress of the house, yet she was also its prisoner. The elevators were locked. The windows did not open. Tae-moo was a ghost of a different kind. He left before dawn and returned late, smelling of smoke and alcohol. But he always checked on them. On the third night, a thunderstorm rolled over Seoul, mirroring the violence brewing outside. Leo, terrified of the thunder, refused to sleep in his new, high-tech crib. Elena sat in the living room, rocking him, humming a soft lullaby she used to sing in London. You re-off-key. Elena jumped. Tae-moo stood in the entryway, leaning against the marble pillar. He had discarded his jacket and tie. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the start of the tattoos that she knew covered his chest, the tiger stripes and calligraphy of his clan. He held a glass of amber liquid in one hand. He could not sleep, Elena said defensively, pulling the blanket tighter around Leo. Neither can I. Tae-moo walked over and sat on the sofa opposite her. He looked exhausted. The circles under his eyes were dark bruises. He watched Leo sleeping in her arms with that same intense fascination. Does he ask about me? Tae-moo asked. The vulnerability in the question was so unexpected it disarmed her. He asks about his father, Elena said quietly. I told him his father was a king who lived in a castle far away. A king. Tae-moo snorted, taking a drink. A monster, you mean? Sometimes they are the same thing. Tae-moo set the glass down with a sharp clink. Why did you run, Elena? Really? Was it the violence? Or was it me? It was the day you came home with blood on your hands and did not even wash it off before you tried to touch me, she said, the memory rising like bile. I was pregnant. I realized that if I stayed, that blood would eventually be on our child. I did not want him to be a successor. I wanted him to be a boy. And now? Now he is in a bulletproof tower surrounded by guards. He is alive, Tae-moo countered sharply. Do you know what happened today? The Viper clan bombed 3 of my warehouses. They are searching for you. If you were still in London, they would have peeled the skin from your bones just to send me a message. Elena swallowed hard. Why do they want me? Leverage. They want the shipping routes I control. They think if they have my heir, I will sign over the keys to the kingdom. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. They are wrong. I would kill every single one of them before I let them touch him. And what about me? Tae-moo's gaze locked onto hers. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with the static of the storm outside and the tension between them. You, he said, his voice dropping to a growl. You are the only thing in this world I cannot calculate. You make me weak. He stood up and moved toward her. Elena held her breath. He stopped right in front of her, reaching out to tuck a stray curl behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her neck, over her pulse point. I hated you for 3 years, he whispered. I practiced hating you. I told myself when I found you, I would make you pay. And Elena's voice trembled. And then I saw you in that alley, soaking wet, holding our son, and all I wanted was to burn the world down so no one else could look at you. He leaned down. His lips brushed hers, a feather-light touch that burned like a brand. It was not a kiss, it was a question. A challenge. Elena's body betrayed her. She leaned into him, just an inch, drawn by the gravity of him, the dark, dangerous pull she had run halfway across the world to escape. Beep. 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 The sudden, shrill alarm shattered the moment. Red emergency lights began to pulse along the ceiling. Metal shutters slammed down over the massive windows with the sound of guillotines dropping. Leo woke up screaming. Taemu pulled back instantly, the lover vanishing, the killer returning. He tapped his earpiece. Report. Silence. Then, a voice crackled through, filled with static and gunfire. Breach. West Gate. Internal compromise. They have the codes, sir. They inside the perimeter. Get the car to the basement. Now. Taemu roared. He turned to Elena, his face a mask of controlled terror. Get up. Give me the boy. What's happening? Elena scrambled to her feet, clutching Leo. We have been betrayed. Someone on my security team sold the codes. He grabbed her arm, hauling her toward the hidden panel in the wall that led to the panic room, or so she thought. Instead, the panel revealed a weapons cache. Taemu grabbed a semi-automatic rifle and a fresh handgun. He shoved the handgun into Elena's free hand. Do you remember how to use this? I shot a target once at your range. 3 years ago. Point and pull. Do not hesitate. He racked the slide of the rifle. We not stay here. The gas override is linked to the panic room ventilation. If we go in there, they'll suffocate us. Where do we go? The roof. The helicopter. They ran. The hallway was bathed in strobing red light. They reached the service stairwell just as the elevator doors at the end of the hall dinged open. 4 men in tactical gear spilled out. They were not police. They wore the Silver Viper insignia on their chests. Contact. One shouted. Taemu did not wait. He shoved Elena behind the heavy fire door and opened fire. The sound was deafening in the confined space. Concrete chips exploded from the walls. Go up. Move. Taemu shouted, firing in controlled bursts to suppress the attackers. Elena sprinted up the concrete stairs, Leo crying against her shoulder. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She could hear the heavy thud of boots pursuing them, the crack of return fire. Floor 40. Floor 41. Taemu, she screamed as she reached the roof access door. It was locked. Taemu appeared around the landing below, backing up, firing one-handed while reloading with the other. He took the stairs 3 at a time, slammed into the door, and punched a code into the keypad. It beeped red. Access denied. They locked out the system, he cursed. He looked at the heavy steel door, then at Elena and Leo. The footsteps below were getting louder. Stand back. He aimed the rifle at the hinges and blew them off. He kicked the door open, and the howling wind and rain of the storm hit them instantly. They spilled out onto the rooftop helipad. The helicopter was there, blades spinning slowly, waiting. But so was a man. Standing by the pilot's door, holding a silenced pistol to the pilot's head, was Chief of Security Choi, Taemu's right hand for 10 years. I'm sorry, sir, Choi shouted over the wind. They offered me the shipping routes. All of them. Taemu froze. His rifle was raised, but Choi was shielding himself behind the pilot. Let them go, Choi, Taemu said, his voice carrying over the storm. Take me. Let the woman and the boy go. Not do that. The Vipers want the air. Choi shifted the gun toward Elena. Time seemed to slow down. Elena saw the barrel of the gun turn toward her. She saw Taemu's eyes widen, a look of pure, helpless horror. She felt the weight of the gun in her own hand. Point and pull. Do not hesitate. Elena raised the gun. She did not look at Choi. She did not think about morality. She looked at the threat to her son. She pulled the trigger. The recoil jarred her arm. The shot went wide, hitting Choi in the shoulder. It was not a kill shot, but it was enough. Choi flinched, his aim disrupted. Bang. A single shot rang out from Taemu's rifle. Choi dropped to the wet concrete, a hole in the center of his forehead. Get in. Taemu screamed, sprinting toward them. But as they ran toward the chopper, the stairwell door behind them exploded outward. A squad of Viper soldiers poured onto the roof. Bullets zipped past them like angry hornets. One struck the helicopter's fuselage. Another pinged off the tarmac. Too many, the pilot screamed, revving the engine. Taemu threw Elena and Leo into the back seat of the chopper. He turned to climb in, but a bullet caught him in the leg. He stumbled, falling onto the wet tarmac. Taemu. Elena shrieked, reaching out for him. He looked up at her, rain plastering his hair to his face. He was 5 feet away. The soldiers were advancing, firing wildly. If he tried to climb in, they would riddle the cabin with bullets. They would kill Leo. He made the calculation in a split second. He scrambled backward, away from the chopper, drawing their fire toward himself. Go, he roared at the pilot. Take off. That is a direct order. No. No. Elena screamed, fighting against the seatbelt, reaching for the open door. Taemu, get in. Keep him safe, Elena. Taemu shouted, his voice cracking. He pulled the pins on 2 grenades from his belt and turned to face the oncoming wave of soldiers. Be the mother he needs. The helicopter lurched upward, the wind whipping the door shut. As they ascended into the storm-blackened sky, Elena pressed her face to the glass, sobbing. Below, on the rain-slicked roof of the Sky Palace, she saw a lone figure standing amidst a swarm of enemies. She saw the flash of muzzle fire from his rifle. And then, a massive, blinding explosion of orange and white fire that swallowed the roof hole. Then, the clouds swallowed them, and there was only darkness. The safe house was not a house. It was a concrete bunker buried deep within the jagged spine of the Taebaek Mountains, disguised as a derelict hunting lodge. The helicopter had touched down in a clearing blinded by snow and darkness, the pilot shoving a duffel bag of cash and a satellite phone into Elena's hands before taking off again to draw the pursuit away. For 6 hours, silence had been the loudest thing in the world. Elena sat on the floor of the main room, her back pressed against the cold stone of the fireplace. Leo was finally asleep on a mattress in the corner, clutching the plush tiger, his breathing the only rhythm in the dead air. The satellite phone sat on the floorboards next to her. She stared at it. She was waiting for it to ring. She was waiting for a ghost to call. The explosion. The image replayed on the back of her eyelids every time she blinked. The orange flower of fire blooming in the rain. The silhouette of the men who had claimed her, burning so she could fly away. A news alert on her own phone, which had miraculously found a sliver of signal, confirmed the nightmare. Explosion at Hanam-dong Sky Palace. Casualties unconfirmed. Kong Corporation stock plummets. Chairman Kong Taemu presumed dead. Presumed, Elena whispered to the empty room. The word tasted like iron and ash. She was not crying. She felt hollowed out, scraped clean of emotion until only a cold, hard resolve remained. If he was dead, the Vipers would come for Leo next. The uncle, the man Taemu had hinted was behind the betrayal, would not stop until the bloodline was erased. Elena Vance, the archivist from London, had died in that explosion too. The woman sitting in the dark was someone else entirely. She checked the magazine of the handgun Taemu had given her. 7 rounds. She stood up, her legs stiff, and began to barricade the heavy oak door with the few pieces of furniture in the room. She would not be a victim. Not tonight. Crunch. The sound was faint, barely a whisper over the wind outside. The sound of a boot compressing fresh snow. Elena froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. She moved silently to the window, peering through the crack in the boarded shutters. Shadows moved against the white snow. 3. No, 4. They were moving in a tactical formation, rifles raised. They had not found the bunker by accident. They had hunted them. She looked at Leo sleeping. "I am sorry, baby," she whispered. She moved him. Not to the panic room, there was not one, but into the small crawl space beneath the floorboards, hidden under a rug. It was dusty and dark. "Leo," she whispered, her voice shaking despite her best efforts. "We replaying the quiet game. Like in London. Remember? You have to be as quiet as a mouse. No matter what sounds you hear. Do you promise?" Leo, sensing her fear, nodded with wide, terrified eyes. "Dada coming." Elena's throat closed up. She kissed his forehead, a desperate, fierce press of lips against skin. Quiet as a mouse. She replaced the boards. She replaced the rug. Then she stood in the center of the room, raised the gun, and aimed it at the door. Boom. The door splintered inward. Elena fired. The first shot went wide, embedding in the doorframe. The second hit a man in the shoulder as he breached the room. He grunted, stumbling back, but 2 more poured in behind him. "Drop it," a voice roared. A rifle butt slammed into her wrist. The bone cracked. Elena screamed, the gun clattering to the floor. A hand grabbed her hair, yanking her head back, forcing her to her knees. The room filled with men in black gear. And then, walking through the broken door with the casual arrogance of a tourist, came an older man in a pristine camel coat. He held a cane, though he clearly did not need it. Kang Jin-ho. The uncle. He looked around the squalid room, his lip curling in distaste, before his eyes landed on Elena. "Pretty," he mused, his voice oily. "I see why my nephew lost his mind. A pity he had to die for such a common thing." "He's not dead," Elena spat. "He's going to kill you." Jin-ho laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "My dear, I watched the thermal feed. The roof reached 4,000 degrees. There is not enough left of Taemu to fill an urn." He stepped closer, the tip of his cane pressing into her chest. "Now. Where is the boy? I do not know what you talking about. Do not lie. We tracked the heat signatures. 2 passengers." He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could smell peppermint and rot. "Tell me, and I'll make your death quick. Refuse, and I will let my men have their fun before we find him anyway." Elena looked him in the eye. "Go to hell." Jin-ho sighed. Disappointing. He straightened up and nodded to the men holding her hair. "Break her fingers. One by one. She'll talk." The soldier grabbed her left hand. Elena gritted her teeth, preparing to scream, preparing to die, praying Leo stayed quiet. Click. The sound came from outside. A distinct, metallic click. The lights in the bunker flickered and died. Total darkness plunged the room into chaos. The soldiers shouted, engaging their tactical flashlights. Beams of white light cut through the gloom, sweeping the corners. "Hold her." Jin-ho barked. "What is happening?" "Perimeter breach," one soldier yelled into his radio. "We lost Team 2. I repeat, we lost." His voice was cut off by a wet, gurgling sound. In the beam of a flashlight near the door, a soldier was suddenly lifted off his feet, disappearing into the shadows of the ceiling rafters. There was a sickening snap of a neck breaking, and the body dropped to the floor like a sack of wet cement. Contact. Gunfire erupted. The soldiers fired blindly into the shadows. Elena threw herself flat against the floorboards, covering her head. The room became a slaughterhouse. It was not a firefight, it was an extermination. Someone was moving through the darkness, faster than the soldiers, more brutal than the bullets. A soldier screamed as a knife took him in the throat. Another fired his rifle until it clicked empty, only to be silenced by the sound of bone shattering against stone. It was primal. It was terrifying. Then, silence. The only sound was the heavy, ragged breathing of the last man standing in the center of the room. A lighter flickered. The small flame illuminated a face that would haunt nightmares. Kang Tae-moo stood there. But he was not the man in the Tom Ford suit anymore. Half his shirt was burned away. His left arm was wrapped in blood-soaked rags. A fresh, angry burn scorched up the side of his neck, fusing with the tiger tattoo, twisting the beast's face into a snarl of scar tissue. He was covered in ash, blood, and snow. He looked like a demon crawled out of hell's furnace. "You," Jin-ho whispered, backing away until he hit the fireplace. "You re-dead." Tae-moo did not speak. He stepped over a corpse, his eyes locked on his uncle. In his right hand, he held a combat knife dripping with blood. "Tae-moo." Elena scrambled up, clutching her broken wrist. He did not look at her. He could not. If he looked at her, he would lose the rage that was keeping him upright. He was running on pure, distilled violence. "Nephew," Jin-ho stammered, raising his hands. We can discuss this. The corporation. It's yours." "I just wanted to." "You touched her," Tae-moo rasped. His voice was ruined, shredded by smoke and screaming. "I did not." "I swear." Tae-moo moved. He closed the distance in a blur. He did not use the knife. He dropped it. He grabbed his uncle by the throat with his good hand and slammed him against the stone mantel. "You hunted my wife," Tae-moo snarled, the honorific slipping out, possessive and final. "You hunted my son." "Tae-moo, please." Tae-moo's hand tightened. "I told you, uncle. I told you years ago. The moment you looked at my throne, I would tolerate it. But the moment you looked at my family." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Tae-moo exerted pressure. There was no artistry to it, no martial arts grace. Just the brutal, crushing strength of a man who had walked through fire to get here. Jin-ho clawed at Tae-moo's arm, his eyes bulging, his feet kicking uselessly against the stone. Crack. Jin-ho went limp. Tae-moo held him for a second longer, making sure, then let the body slide to the floor. The room was silent again. Tae-moo stood there, swaying slightly. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was rushing in to take its place. He turned slowly toward Elena. The lighter flame died, leaving them in the gray moonlight filtering through the broken door. "Elena," he whispered. She did not run to him. She walked, steady and sure, across the blood-slicked floor. She stopped in front of him, reaching out with her good hand to touch the unburned side of his face. "You relate," she said, her voice cracking. Tae-moo let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. His knees gave out. Elena caught him. She was not strong enough to hold his weight, so she went down with him, guiding him to the floor. He collapsed against her, his head on her lap, his blood soaking into her jeans. "Did they hurt him?" Tae-moo wheezed, his eyes searching the room frantically. "He's safe. Under the floor. Quiet as a mouse." Tae-moo closed his eyes. "Good. That's good. Stay with me, Tae-moo," Elena ordered, pressing her hand over the worst of his wounds. "Do not you dare die now. You do not get to die after killing the bad guy. That's against the rules." "I burned it down," he murmured, his consciousness slipping. "Just like I said. Burned it all down. I know. I saw. Was it enough?" Elena looked at the carnage around them. She looked at the men who had destroyed his own empire, his own body, just to keep a promise. She leaned down and kissed his forehead, right over the scar, right over the ash and sweat. "Yes," she whispered. It was enough. 1 year later, the wind off the Amalfi coast smelled of lemons and salt, a sharp contrast to the metallic tang of Seoul. The villa sat on a limestone cliff, accessible only by a private funicular or a helipad that was currently occupied by a delivery of fresh flowers. It was a fortress disguised as paradise. Elena sat on the terrace, reviewing the quarterly reports on her tablet. The numbers for the new European branch of Kong Pharmaceuticals were steady. Legitimate. Boring. She loved it. Mama. Look. Elena looked up. Leo, now 4 and growing like a weed, was sprinting across the manicured lawn. He was chasing a golden retriever puppy that tripped over its own paws. Careful, Leo. He's fast. Leo giggled, tumbling into the grass. A shadow fell over Elena. She did not flinch. She did not reach for a weapon. She simply reached up and took the hand that rested on her shoulder. Teemu stood behind her. The burns on his neck had healed into silvery scars that disappeared beneath the collar of his white linen shirt. He did not hide them anymore. He wore them like medals. His left arm was stiff, he would never regain full range of motion, but it was strong enough to lift his son. Strong enough to hold her. The board is asking when you will return to Seoul, Elena said, leaning her head back against his hip. Let them ask, Teemu replied, his eyes tracking Leo. I am retired. You re-34. You ca not be retired. I am a consultant. It sounds better. He traced the line of her jaw with his thumb. Besides, I have more important work here. Oh. Like what? Like teaching my son how not to trip over the dog. And convincing my wife to come back to bed. Elena smiled, turning in her chair to face him. The darkness was still there in his eyes, it would always be there. You could not be who he was, do what he had done, and be entirely light. But the hunger was different now. It was not starvation anymore. It was satisfaction. We ca not hide forever, Teemu, she said softly. Eventually, someone will try again. I know, he said. The easy domesticity vanished for a second, replaced by the lethal protector she remembered from the bunker. And when they do, we will be ready. He leaned down, bracing his hands on the arms of her chair, trapping her in the space that belonged only to them. But until then, he whispered, his lips brushing hers, this is our kingdom. And the gates are locked. Elena kissed him. It tasted of lemons, espresso, and peace. Dada. Dog eat my shoe. Leo shouted from the lawn. Teemu pulled back, groaning. That dog was a mistake. The dog was a compromise, Elena reminded him. You wanted a guard tiger. A tiger would respect the shoe. He straightened up, buttoning his jacket, pretending to be annoyed, but Elena saw the smile he tried to hide. He walked out onto the lawn, scooping Leo up with his good arm, tossing him into the air until the boy shrieked with laughter. Elena watched them, her monster and her miracle, silhouetted against the setting Italian sun. She picked up her tablet and closed the report. The empire could wait. The world could burn for all she cared. She was exactly where she was meant to be.